As annoying and frustrating and awful as COVID was, and frankly still is, it did give us a beautiful gift for the upcoming basketball season. We get one more year of Leaky Black in a North Carolina uniform.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, August 24th, 2022. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and joining me as he does every Wednesday is the man, Coach Pat Kilby, and we want to thank you for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or your first watch every single day. Please don't forget to subscribe to the show anywhere you get podcasts so that you get your team every day. For those of you watching, go ahead, smash the like button so we know you are here. Leave some comments about Leaky Black and why you love this dude. Pat Kilby, I cannot believe we've made it at the end of this show through all 13 of Carolina's scholarship basketball players. What a summer it's been, man. I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and I hope you have, and I hope all of you listening and watching have as well.
Yeah, man, it's gone by just incredibly fast, and just being able to touch on all these awesome players that Carolina's filling their roster with, it's been a blast.
Yeah, for sure. So let's end it the right way with the man. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, so my personal opinion here, we're saving best for last. Big, huge Leaky Black fan. And so Leaky, as we all know, because of COVID, he gets a super senior year or a fifth year, which is awesome for experience and depth and leadership on the roster. Leaky plays the three for the Tar Heels, 6'9". Man, that's just he's growing, obviously, because I think he was listed at 6'8" last year.
I believe so. Yep.
6'9", 205 pounds, repping number one for the Tar Heels. You can find Leaky on social media, Twitter at Leaky Black, and Instagram is just Leaky Black. So go give him some love on social media.
Yes, make sure you follow Leaky and his mom, Miss Carla. She's the best of the best. So, Pat, let's just unpack for the people a little bit about what Leaky did last year statistically, and maybe some of his career highs as well, and maybe just touch on some things that stand out to you about him statistically.
Yeah, so 2021-22 season, he played in 38 games and started all 38 of those games. So Leaky's been very fortunate to stay healthy throughout his career, and we, for the most part, and we hope that continues. So 29.7 minutes per game. I don't expect that to change much, to be honest with you. He's somebody we really need on the floor. But one thing that I find interesting, his season high was 44 minutes against Syracuse and played 40-plus minutes 4 times.
What?
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy. When I was looking back at all his stats and stuff, I just couldn't believe that.
Yeah, I know. That's just a lot. So that just goes to show really how important he really is and how much Coach Davis trusts him.
Yep.
4.9 points per game, season high of 13 at Louisville, and a career high of 16. 4.3 rebounds per game. That's something I look to see go upward next year. But his season high was 11 versus UNC Asheville. 2.7 assists per game. I've always thought Leaky has sneaky vision and maybe underrated as a passer. He's very good. Season high of 8 against Marquette and a career high of 9 against that team that's 8 miles down the road that nobody likes. 37 turnovers on the season, which is one less than total games played. So he's averaging less than 1 per game, and he's on the floor a lot. So Leaky's somebody that can be trusted with the basketball.
Absolutely.
And then one of my favorite stats on here in the plus minus, he's plus 302. Plus 30 against Marquette was his season high, but man, I'm telling you, the dude is just – he can be trusted on the floor, and he does so much defensively, which we already know.
Except when he throws line drives off the backboard against Baylor.
We're going to just forget that ever happens. I'm sure Leaky wants to also. it seemed like he had a pretty good laugh about it afterwards, though. So
Yeah,
he
I've heard Coach Frederick talk about it in an interview, and he was giving him a hard time about it as well. So yeah, it sounds like it's something internally they've all given him crap about.
Yeah. So one thing that also stood out about Leaky, 46.6% field goal percentage. So when he is shooting the ball, which we all know it's not frequently, he's effective with it. That's a good field goal percentage. Last year, 33.3% from the three-point line, which is an obvious boost for him, although sample size is small, 17 to 51 from three. Free throw total, 33 of 38 and 86.8%, which let's get to the free throw line more often, Leaky, because he does a pretty good job there.
Bingo. I think we're going to touch on that more pretty soon here. So, Pac, here's my question for you. I think you and I know there are other people as well, and a good number of people who like get it and love him and appreciate him in big ways. But I remember, like, you talked about he hasn't had much injury history recently. His freshman year, he was out a good bit with some foot injury, but his sophomore and junior years, I just felt like he had to deal with so much rancor, and Leaky Black's never developing into the shooter we thought he'd be, and this and that, and Leaky can't do it. So let me pose you this question, Pac. Why don't people why don't people fully appreciate Leaky? Is it because he does less obvious things? Why do you think it is?
I think it's several things. I think number one, you mentioned it. He does do less obvious things, or maybe things that I would consider undervalued. And that leads me to my next point. Today's game is all about, at least in the minds of a lot of people, it's all about offense, and it's about scoring, and it's about highlights. And when players aren't putting those things out there, they don't particularly like them or even love them, And I think maybe that has something to do with it, especially at North Carolina, where it's like, hey, we have a high-octane offense. We put dudes on the floor that can score, and we will outscore you, and we'll out-transition you. And Leaky's not that, as we know. But, Roy Williams had staples all throughout his national championship teams of guys that were like Leaky. And I, point out Jackie Manuel, Theo Pinson. Now, these guys are gifted offensively. I'm not saying that they're not, but they're defensive specialists. And so I think that he does do some things that, they're just underappreciated and undervalued. But I hope after this episode they are valued and will understand just how important this man really is to our team.
Yeah. And you talk about an interesting distinction I'd like to make with it is, like, the general populace and fan base might not get it, but Hubert Davis gets it. As you just said, Coach Williams certainly got it. So let me ask you, because you are a basketball coach, when you have a player like this, how do you help encourage him or her? Like, hey, I know that not everyone sees what you do and gets it, but we as a coaching staff, we see it, and you are insanely valuable to this team.
Yeah, well, I think you nailed it. Hubert gets it, and the way you encourage them is by putting them on the floor. That, to me, that's action of saying, I trust you, and now I don't care what they're saying. I'm going to put you on the floor because I know you help us win, and I know that you're valuable to our team. And so you see that through putting them, just playing 40-plus minutes 4 times. That's Coach Davis saying, you're valuable. And I think, if all else fails, you're in your ear and you're talking to them. But what players really care about is the action that you take. You say you value me, but what are we going to do about it? And, obviously Coach Davis has him on the floor when it matters. So that shows that he is valued.
I love that. And it shows up in things like when I was doing the summer stat series review and I looked at free throw percentage, like, I knew he had done better last year, but, like, for folks who didn't catch that, here's the stat. Of all of Carolina's players last year who had 10 or more free throw attempts, Leaky Black is your leading free throw shooter in terms of percentage at 86.8%, as Pat talked about. 86.8%. And I know he's taking fewer free throws than Caleb Love or RJ Davis or Mondo, but goodness freaking gracious, it's insane, especially after the 2 years before he had shot 69%. So, I mean, that's a huge jump. And so just a side note, man, I hope he can continue to shoot at that level this season. But like, man, you look at that and it's like Leaky is doing things even more than underappreciated things. He's doing things that are glaringly obviously there, and I want people, just like you were saying, let's get aboard the Leaky train, let's get some Leaky lockdown going, and make that all happen. Oh, okay, I'm going to get too fired up, so I better get us into our first ad read here. Pack, yes, when you're riding the Leaky train, you got to buckle up, and you shouldn't be driving the Leaky train after you drink. In fact, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration wants us to help you think about that. Imagine this, you're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many. And as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby, you can make it home, okay? It's no big deal. What are the odds you're going to get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen if you do? Your insurance goes up, or you lose your license, or you lose your job, you total your car, you accidentally kill someone? Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while they're under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So, if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. So, Pack, hard right turn back into Leaky Black coming out of that. But
hey, real quick, is it possible that we can get that ad read for Paolo Banchero and Coach K's grandson?
Oh my gosh. Shots fired. Yeah. Wow. Well played, sir. Very well played. Oh, gosh. Yes. Okay. Wow. Duke getting thrown some shade from Kilby tonight. Love that. So let's look back at what Leaky did last year, some of his strengths, some of his weaknesses, and what we're seeing there. Let's start with the strengths from last year.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes without saying that Leaky's strength is his defensive ability. I mean, I've said it time and time again. I've even said it on here before. Leaky's worth 20 points per game, not because of what he gives us scoring, but because of what he takes away from the other team. And so he's just super important on that end. He rebounds the ball really well. He has great length. And then I think underrated about him is his passing ability.
Yep.
And how good he is with the ball in his hands in transition. It's like, hey, Bacot gets a rebound. Okay, he can outlet to Caleb Love. He can outlet to RJ. He can outlet to Leaky. Like, get it to one of those three and let's go. And that's kind of nice having that third trusted guard or ball handler on the floor that can start the break and still value the basketball.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's so good. That's some great just points about what he did so well last year. What about the flip side of that, Pack? What are some things when we look back, it's like, Leaky really just didn't rise to the level we'd like to see last year?
Yeah, I think, the knock is going to continue to be just the offensive side of the basketball until he shows otherwise. And look, you're not going to meet a bigger Leaky Black fan than me. And so I would argue that he kind of showed what his offensive side is going to be moving forward. In the NCAA tournament. He stepped up huge,
yes,
especially
absolutely.
in the Final Four and national championship. And so, I would say his weaknesses is shooting, is potentially some confidence issues on the offensive end. But, when the ball goes through the net, that confidence starts to get fixed. And so when you're also preparing and you're working hard, that fixes those confidence issues. And I know that Leaky's made leaps and bounds and strides on the offensive end, and I expect that to really, really show in this upcoming season.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really is, like, as I think about weaknesses of the players on the scholarship players on the roster, I haven't stopped to think about this. This is right off the top of my brain, but he might be the person I would give the least weaknesses to, because he is such a complete player that does multiple things. And I know it seems glaringly different because the biggest weakness is his shooting. But like outside of that, I'm like, you're everything I want in a basketball player. If I'm a coach, give me 5 Leaky Blacks. Now I can't play them all because somebody's got to score at a higher level and shoot better. But I want a lot of that dude on my team. Now, speaking of which, Pack, here's something I want to unpack with you a little bit, looking back at last year. To me, obviously, as we've already said, even on this show, Leaky has always been known for his D. I think part of that is just because he's not known for his O. He's not known for his offense. But to me, I can't even put a finger on what it was or when specifically it was, but something clicked at some point last year with Leaky's defense to take it to a whole different level. Like, it felt like he was operating in a completely different stratosphere, like the back half of the season. Let me just recount a couple of the things he did to a couple of people who thought they were something. You had Marquette in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Justin Lewis was averaging 16.8 points per game coming in. He scored 6 points on 2 of 15 shooting. One of just 3 times all season he scored in single digits. That was his lowest point total all season. How about NC State, Darion Sebron, averaging 17.3 points coming in. That day, he scored 2 points of 1 of 6 shooting. One of just 2 times all season. He was in single digits, and also his lowest point total of the season. You notice a trend? Georgia Tech's Michael DeVoe came in averaging 17.9 points per game. 2 points on 1 of 5 shooting. 1 of 4 times all season he was in single digits, and that was his lowest point total all season. Duke's AJ Griffin. This one's a little bit different. He torched Carolina for 27 points in the game in Chapel Hill. The game back in Duke, 5 points. The Final Four game, 6 points. There's a lottery pick for you. Perhaps my favorite Leaky Black thing, once the defense was going crazy for him, once everything clicked, was when Coach Davis put him on Kihei Clark against Virginia. And it was just like, whoa! Like, the big old 6'9" Leaky on little 5'10" Kihei Clark, and Virginia's offense couldn't do anything. All that to say, those stats are awesome and incredible. I mean, you look at, it's just going exactly with what you talked about how much worth the defense is bringing somebody down. And so, Pac, my question is, did you feel that same way? Do you feel like something just clicked and then it went to a new level? What do you think it was? Is it the Jackie Manuel factor? What's going on there?
Yeah, so I think several things. First of all, I think Jackie Manuel is a huge factor in Leaky's progression, just in general, even offensively, but definitely defensively, because that's somebody who's played that role, excelled in that role, and won a national championship in that role. But what I don't want to overlook here, and maybe a lot of you don't know this, Coach Sullivan is on the staff, and he was hired from the New York Knicks, where he was coaching with Tom Thibodeau, specifically to come to North Carolina. And yes, he could help with the bigs, but he's a defensive-minded coach. And one of the things we saw last year, especially not just when Leaky's defense got better, but the team got more consistent, was some adjustments were made defensively. So not only did Leaky – I don't know that Leaky took a huge jump himself, but the team took a jump, and that made Leaky's defense look better. Leaky – so – kind of what I want to use as an example is Leaky was a really good defender on the ball. But, if Caleb Love or RJ Davis are out of position, it's really hard at that level to guard maybe a double gap where you're guarding these athletes that are capable of getting downhill. And, it doesn't matter really how good you are defensively. When you're guarding Division I level athletes in space, it's hard to stay in front. But what we did was adjust our defense. We played gap a little bit more, and we had guys in position to help Leaky to stop penetration. And long story short, I'm getting on my coaching spiel here, but long story short,
you're good. This is great.
When teams aren't getting penetration, they're not getting looks anywhere else, and they're not getting inside-out shots. They're not getting paint touches, which are the things that you are striving for from your offensive end. So an uptick from Leaky was really him doing a great job himself. I'm not taking away from that. But It was also the staff growing the other players, putting them in position to succeed. And by them being better Leaky was better for it.
Man, that's great insight, Pack. That's so good. And I think, when you're talking about playing gap and a lot of that stuff, that a lot of the common basketball fan might not know, but the one thing that you do see that you just talked about is like stopping dribble penetration, that I think is something we've seen Carolina guards struggle with, because Carolina has been so susceptible at times. And this isn't, I'm even going back to Roy Williams' teams at the end of his career, of not being able to stop dribble penetration. What happens? The whole defense sags, and that dribble penetration leads to kick out threes, and there you go. And so I think, man, that's just such good insight on what changed, that it's not just about Leaky, which is such a great reminder that even individual defenders can't do it by themselves. And so the team uptick is what makes Leaky look better amongst his peers. And so, man, that's great. And now that we've got a whole season under Coach Sullivan, along with a whole season under Jack Emanuel, I really like the offense is going to be better. But man, just thinking even more about what you just said, I really think the defense as a whole, I mean, we got like Puff Johnson is going to take some big leaps defensively. And I know we're talking Leaky, so I don't want to get off on a tangent, but man, you just got my wheels spinning on that, and I love it. I love it, Pac. That's great. Speaking of a whole unit playing together, that is very true in football. If one man breaks down or gets out of position, everything can fall apart. You want to learn more about the upcoming college football season? Let me tell you that coming on Locked On Network is the Ultimate College Football Preview, which is here now. It's a 7-episode preview with the college experts, local team experts, and Odyssey College Football insiders. It's everything you need to be ready for the college football season in one spot. Search Ultimate College Football Preview on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. So, Pac, we got to conduct our Coach Davis end of season meeting. It's our last one of the, well, no, we've got another one coming up next week. I won't give that away fully yet, but so I'll be Leaky coming in. Hey, Coach Davis, it's been a great year. We made it to the national championship. What do I need to do this offseason to help us get ready to get over that last little hump?
Well, Leaky, first of all, got to grow or continue growth in shooting, and that just comes through preparation, putting the work in, repetition, getting plenty of shots up. Secondly, strength and conditioning, right? We want to keep that body in top-notch condition because of the longevity of the season and the importance of having you on the floor for our defense. So we've got to be in tip-top shape. And then lastly, finding ways to get to the free throw line within the offense. And, it's pretty clear 86.8% from the free throw line is a great percentage, and we want opportunity for you to shoot more of those free throws. And so we got to find ways within our offense for you to get to the rim and potentially to the free throw line.
Yes, sir. I will do all those things. I'll be ready for the season. It's really interesting about that. Given his skill set, his athleticism, his length, I would just think that would be a very natural thing for Leaky, is like just getting to the rim, blowing by defenders, and maybe somebody crashes down on him and then he can just dump to Mondo or Pete Nance or something. But I feel like Leaky can be a great finisher at the rim. So many times I feel like, Leaky is about to throw this down, and he's just not a vicious dunker. Like, I don't know what it is, but I'm like, I just feel like, given his skill set, given his length, his reach, I'm like, man, just start yamming on dudes. And so, do that, get fouled, get to the line. I think that should be a huge part of his arsenal.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think a lot of that, like you just talked about, like getting to the rim and just being vicious and trying to put somebody on a poster or go be more aggressive, that kind of stuff comes from confidence. And we started to see, like we've talked about, an uptick in his confidence. And so maybe we will be in store for some Sports Center top 10 dunks and some highlight finishes from Leaky this year.
Yeah, man. So, looking ahead, expected role. I mean, I think we know a lot. Like, he's going to be a starter. He's going to start at the 3. But is there anything else that needs to be said about his role on the team?
The only thing I could really see changing is more of an offensive presence. If he continues to grow and show consistency on the offensive end, then maybe they do kind of showcase that a little bit. And the reason I say that is because not necessarily because it's needed, because obviously we have 4 guys on the floor that are really good, but it is somewhat needed because if teams have to respect him and have to guard him,
Yes. Yes.
that just opens things up that much more for the other 4. So
yeah. And as you showed earlier when you were talking about his stats from last season in terms of field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and obviously free throw percentage, we talked about, like, he's very efficient when he is shooting. And so you just wonder, like, as the volume grows, will the percentages grow with it? We're going to have to look and see what that looks like. Here's a question for you, Pac. When we think about, coming back for this 5th year, somebody who's been in the program his entire career, Leaky has always been more of a lead by example type of leader. Do you see him this year taking on more of a vocal leadership role, or does he continue, do you think, more to lead by example?
I think naturally he's a leader by example. Him being a super senior and having as much experience as he has, I think naturally he's, probably his role is going to grow vocally. I think it has to an extent, but Leaky's always going to be that consummate teammate. He leads by example, and I just see that that's who he is, kind of, and that kind of stuff to me doesn't really change that much. Maybe you mature and you grow into a vocal leader, but if he wasn't last year, I don't foresee that changing a ton.
Yeah.
So anyway,
because you don't want to ask him to be somebody he's not, because that probably negatively affects his on-court production, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's something that they're having to focus on, or it's out of their comfort zone or whatever, that would just take away from them being able to be who they are. And
Okay.
Leaky's already shown he's effective in who he is. So watch things
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good word, man. Very good word. Well, let's look at newcomers coming in, anybody going out who might affect Leaky's playing time. It doesn't really seem, just given what we've already talked about with his high level of minutes, his trust from the coaching staff, I don't think really anybody's going to affect his playing time much, but just who do we need to be aware of that is playing kind of in that same space on the depth chart?
Yeah, we've got like 5 guys that play the 3, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's Leaky, it's Puff, it's Dontrez, it's Tyler Nickel, and so I mean, there's a lot of guys in that one spot. I think obviously if there's anyone that's going to affect the minutes, I think first it's Puff, and then secondly it's Dontrez.
Yep.
But those guys are going to get plenty of minutes on their own. I don't see Leaky. I think he's going to remain right around the 30 minutes per game mark.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly where it is. And I don't think Tyler Nickel this year is going to cut much into that, especially because the defensive drop-off from Leaky down to Tyler is going to be precipitous, we'll say. In terms of people leaving the team, there's really nobody that steps out from last year that's going to affect Leaky's playing time going up. I think you're right. We're looking right at around a 30 minutes per game kind of mark. Let's move then to the last couple things we want to touch on: Leaky's floor and Leaky's ceiling.
Yeah, well, Leaky is obviously he was robbed of ACC Player of the Year once already, so we'll go ahead and throw that as his floor, ACC Player of the Year. I don't see any way possible that he's not the ACC Player of the Year. And I'm salty that he's not going to get back-to-back ACC Defensive Player of the Years, but it's whatever. And then, his ceiling, I see it as National Defensive Player of the Year. There's maybe a few people that come to mind that rival him defensively. Most of the people are like rim protectors, like Sheboy at Kentucky and things like that. But no one just shuts people down like Leaky does. And so, to me, I think he's a prime candidate for National Defensive Player of the Year.
And people are going to, like, the thing with that too is as a team that is going to be highly nationally recognized, he's going to get a lot of attention for that all over the country. And so I think the team success is going to help him. And the other thing, I'm with you. I feel very comfortable saying ACC defensive player of the year as a floor. Why? With shooting, it can come and go, just like a batting average and other things. You go through slumps. Defense don't slump, man. Like, Unless you're injured and just not able to do what you normally do, defense travels. It's just like speed in baseball. Like speed never slumps. Defense can be defense all the time. And so I'm right there with you. All right, Pack, give me a bold prediction for Leaky and what you're most excited for.
All right, Tar Heels fans, you're going to love this one. Okay, so Leaky is 387 points away from being a 1,000-point scorer for the University of North Carolina over his entire career. If Carolina plays 39 games again, he would have to average 10 points per game to reach that mark. And I'm saying that it happens. Okay. I'm saying that Leaky becomes a 1,000 career point scorer. And I don't even feel like this is really a bold prediction. I'm that confident in it. Like, I think he's going to make that jump. But I am a huge believer in Leaky. So man, that's my prediction.
I love it. Matching a 1,000-point score with that level of defensive production, like that would be something monumentous for a Carolina basketball player. What are you most excited for this year about Leaky?
Well, I'm just excited about just the leadership and the experience that he brings to the table.
Yeah.
We've said it time and time again. We've got experience across the board. With Leaky and even with Pete Nance and with Bacot and even our guard play, just the leadership and experience that we'll have, and that starts with Leaky, and so I'm excited about that for the Tar Heels.
Man, this is a deep team. It's an experienced team. It's a mature team. There's just not many. They're not going to be high major D1 teams that can match this level of maturity and experience. With talent, I can't wait. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Yes, it is.
Pat Kilby, that is the end of our scholarship roster preview. Folks, get ready. Coming up next week, we're not ending it with the scholarship. We're gonna talk about the Biscuit Boys next week. All the dudes coming in to try to get us those Bojangles biscuits that we all love. That is next Wednesday's show. But that brings us to the end of today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels. Coming up tomorrow, Pack, it's an interesting one. Jason Jordan and I are having a conversation about Bronny James. Might he come to college? And why are Tar Heels getting some noise for his college decision if he does come to college? Oh, that's going to be an interesting one. Hey, we'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a blast talking about Leaky. It's been a blast talking about this whole roster. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't checked out the entire playlist, go do it right now. One show about all 13 of Carolina's scholarship players for this upcoming season. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked on Heels. You can follow my man Pack at Coach_K23, and you can follow me at Isaac Shade. Please don't forget to subscribe. It's free. Why wouldn't you do it? Smash the like button. Leave your comments about our man Leaky Black. We want to remind you that you can get more on the ACC by making Locked on ACC your second listen today. Host Candace Cooper and the local experts of Locked On take you around the conference in 30 minutes, 5 days a week. Oh man, it's been a great Wednesday. It's been hump day, and we want to remind you that it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Until tomorrow, peace!